And welcome. You are with another RCR 360 Unplugged, a really last minute one this week, but we felt the need, didn't we, Alistair? We felt the need for speed, and
Yeah,
here we are.
we've got a road trip coming up this weekend, so we need to get the word out and we need to make sure that everybody's on point.
We did. And it's amazing. Sometimes the news and information gods just provide, which is what's been happening over this past week. So, welcome, come on in. I know it's really last minute. So, for many of you, you'll potentially be watching this as the record, but welcome along. Yeah, tour's underway. I finally got to join you because we last time we did this was just before you did Palmy and Kapiti, and then we had Tauranga this past weekend. So you've got 3 screenings under your belt now, Alistair. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I when I made this film, I thought there's no way people are going to come and watch this film. I thought we're just going to put it on the internet and that'll be it, sort of thing, right? But people are showing up and they're showing up in decent numbers. We got I don't know 130, 140 people
Mm.
here in Tauranga this last weekend. And it was a really good crowd. And I remember you commented straight afterwards there was an electricity in the room, right?
Yeah, very much so. And that getting together, and you mentioned the getting together too, both in Palmy and Kapiti. There was a buzz in the room, and what for me I absolutely loved is how many people had come straight from RCR and didn't necessarily come via other networks like VFF or Live Free or any of those. These were people that had been, only consuming the media content or had heard about it from another place and were wanting to actually find out more. And that for me was really heartening too, because it means that people are able to see this content and actually understand what's going on. And we are giving them what they are wanting to hear and see. So that was really important as well, I thought.
Another thing too is that we've had a number of councillors. This is a
Mm.
story, the managed out story is a lot about local councils, and we've had a lot of councillors through the doors already in Palmerston North, in Kapiti, and now also in Tauranga. We had
About 5, I think, 4 or 5 turn up from between Western Bay and Tauranga Council. It was really good.
so we've got councillors who are thirsty for this knowledge as well. It's not just us plebs.
Mm. Sal's just saying, are you planning on visiting Blenheim? Sal, you'll have to make a trip over the hill, I'm afraid. We're doing Richmond and Golden Bay. Yeah, and Sarah's just saying, are we visiting Nelson? We're doing Richmond. So I know how parochial you are down there at the top of the south. I'm from Hawke's Bay. It's the same here too. But we are definitely going to do Richmond, and we chose Richmond specifically because it's relatively central to sort of Nelson, Motueka, Richmond, and all of those areas there. So we have, to that end, we have actually had some new dates added. Yes, Richmond being one of them. So we are going to, and I'm just scrolling to the bottom of the page where it all lives. We've got Hawke's Bay on Saturday. So that Saturday afternoon, there are still some seats available for that. That's in Havelock North. So all my Bay people, do not be complaining about the Havelock North.
From
Yep.
it's Jackie Blair. She's asking, should we be inviting Hastings City Councillors along for Saturday in Havelock North? Yes, please, Jackie.
Yes, definitely, Jackie. And I know you've got contacts. Please, please, please. Definitely, definitely, definitely. So if you're going to hear a date here or a place that we're going to, if you have an in with your local council, these are the people that definitely need to attend. So this weekend, Hawke's Bay on Saturday and Gisborne on Sunday. And we're going to talk about Gisborne in depth in just a moment. Then the following weekend, so the next Saturday, we're going to be in Christchurch. We're coming for you, Christchurch. Ticket sales there are going really well. In Havelock North, we're going to be at the Good News Church Hall Robin in Goddard Lane. So that's nice and easy to find. So that's where we'll be. In Gisborne, we're at the Odeon Theatre, and everybody in Gisborne knows where the Odeon Theatre is. Taranaki, David, you know what? Taranaki is one of the places that we may potentially get to towards the end of the tour. It's trying to fit all the places in. So it's on our potential list for
And
Taranaki.
look, if you have if there is a desire for it to be played in your town, and we're not going there at the moment, like for instance Taranaki, um, and you want to help organize one, we can do that. That's no
Yep,
problem at all.
definitely. Definitely. Then Christchurch, Saturday the 21st. Dunedin, it's your turn, Sunday the 22nd. That's at the Otago Museum and the Hutton Theatre. Then on the Tuesday 24th, we're down in Invercargill at the Invercargill Working Men's Club. Then Auckland is likely going to be, so we had Whangaparoa, we were definitely doing Whangaparoa, but we also will potentially put a more central Auckland date on as well. That's at this stage tentatively around 6th, 7th of July. So it's probably Monday, Tuesday, or it could be a Sunday, Monday, depending on how things shake out. That's just being sorted at the moment. As I mentioned before, Richmond, 11th July, those tickets that are available are now up. And we're just in the process of just pinning down the venues and bits and pieces for Golden Bay on the 12th, Westport on the 14th, Hokitika on the 16th, and then we cycle back round to Wellington July 20th. So those are the dates that are in place. And as Alistair said, anything sort of beyond that, that if you want to get something organised in your town or region and you can get either a theatre or a space available, get the numbers together, definitely reach out to inbox at realitycheck.radio and we will see if we can get that added to the tour for sure.
I noticed in the chat there, Maree, Sean Rush, we've got a movie star in the house, Sean Rush.
Hey, Sean.
Tonight. Sean, I've been meaning to give you a call, mate. We do want to get you involved, so I'll give you a call probably tomorrow.
And Linley has just, and also too, I've got Linley from Top of the South in here, and she was saying Hokitika is what she's got organised for the 15th. Thanks, Linley, for that. I knew it was 1 or 2 days. Oh, Sean, so good to have you here. Right, let's get things kicked off with. We've got a few stories and things that we want to cover today, but before we do, Tauranga was fantastic, and it was so good to talk to some people. And I got my little trusty camera out, and I apologise now for the sound quality, but I just got a few responses from people about what they thought of the film and some of the things that they felt they were concerning them from what was going on from Managed Out.
What was the one major thing that you took from the film today?
I think that we can find power in starting our own groups. I don't think it's going to that council and asking them to solve the problem for us. I think it's groups outside the council forming making the community more informed, and they're the power against the council, because the meetings that I went to at Kapiti calm meetings, there was a lot of angry people, and the mayor didn't even attend the whole meeting. She ran off and made some excuses. It was disgusting that was our mayor not even supporting the local people and being more interested in another meeting and running off. Wow. Yeah. So I think the power is also, we paid the rates. Money talks. If everybody is to stop paying those rates, they can't do what they want to do. They can't pay millions of dollars to Jacobs. Yeah. So it seems the obvious, but, you know.
In the Q&A today, you brought up institutional knowledge, Jodie. Tell us a little bit more about that.
What I believe has happened in local councils is we've seen a rationalisation process in the last 30 years. That has meant that we have less engineers that have been working there decade after decade, and they pass that knowledge on. They know if we're talking about rain events, when the last rain events were happening, they know where the slash was, and they understand that need for taking care of the environment and making those steps to make sure then those disasters don't happen. The water flows, where the water pipes are. So we've seen an attrition of this long-term knowledge, and then the contractors come in, they don't know where the water pipes are, they don't understand the history, or they forget it. And this becomes a really big problem. And so then we say that the local councils are dumb, but what might happen is that the culture has changed so quickly because we don't have that institutional knowledge. They're sitting there reminding the chief executive, reminding the mayor and the council, and so they become then vulnerable to whatever new policy wants to be pushed through from government. So that is my interpretation. We've seen that with drinking water services, how it's been harder for them. So I think this is probably a similar mechanism now.
So what was the one thing, what your one wow moment from the film that you really hadn't realised?
Okay, I really want to, what I want to address is solutions So it's all, I know that we need to start at a certain point, but I think we need to weed out and name the corruption and the people that sell out so easily through fear, because that's how we're being manipulated, through fear.
Lovely. Good. What was one of the things that really stood out for you in the film that you weren't expecting?
What I really loved about the movie was this idea that it's exposing. It's what I could see is this concept of how Alistair's put it in such a way that you can see the cockroaches scuttling for the dark corners once Alistair's exposed these things so clearly and so concisely, and put it in such a way that you can't ignore that. And this exposure has done half the work for us, because like I said, the cockroaches will be scuttling for the corners, and all we have to do is keep presenting it, whether it's to our own people or to government or whatever. Go, we see you, we see what you're doing, and we don't like it. Thank you.
I almost feel like we need to get you a T-shirt that says Alistair Harding Exterminator.
That's Tracy. I think that's probably what I'm most proud about with Managed Out, is that we've taken a subject which is very dry, and it was very difficult to try and decide what to put in and what to leave out and so on. But she got it, and when we did the screening in all the 3 different places so far, and we do the Q&A afterwards, we've got a very engaged audience, don't we?
And
we
do.
And they're not leaving either. They want to talk about it. And that's not bad for a bunch of conspiracy theorists, don't you think?
No, not bad at all. And someone just asking what the film is about. It's called Managed Out. So it is about managed retreat, which is essentially governments and councils trying to remove you from the land, usually using the reasoning of climate change or climate modelling as a reason to actually get you off your land. So if you are in an area where there's a screening, do you make sure that you come and see us? And actually the website that I was wanting to talk about last week is now fully up and running. Last time rather, manegedout.com. .co.nz. All the information is there, all the ticketing information is there. And as I said before, very quickly, all those West Coast ones will be going up. Richmond got added today. So just keep checking back for any of those other places. If you can't see your place there, and I've mentioned it, it will be turning up definitely over the coming week. So let's actually go to our first story for the evening, and the first story is around Gisborne, because we are going to Gisborne on Sunday. The issue is more widespread than what you might think. Could managed retreat be coming to Gisborne's beaches? A community workshop is to be held at the Wainui Beach School later this month to discuss the options to help shape the future of the beach, reports the Gisborne Herald. The Gisborne District Council said on social media that the Wainui Beach held deep cultural, social and economic significance to the region, but it faced ongoing challenges from coastal erosion and climate change. The council said to address these issues, the council is developing the Wainui Coastal Adaptation Plan, a strategy for managing current and future coastal risks. Now, you've dug into this, Alistair, and I have to say, are you starting to get the feeling of a little deja vu?
Absolutely, I am. I did not realize. Look, about this time last year, we went down to Gisborne. I can't remember the reason why, but we went down to Gisborne and it was a revelation. We stayed at an Airbnb place on Wainui Beach and it was absolutely beautiful. That's why I say it was a revelation. We absolutely loved it. That is such a stunning beach there. And the people that we were staying with, they were sitting out on the beach, on their seat overlooking the beach on the last morning we were there. And I went down and I went for a swim and I came back and they were there and we stopped and talked. And I said, have you heard about managed retreat yet? And they said, no. I said, you're going to. They're definitely coming for you here. And sure enough, just recently, on the 6th of June, the Gisborne Herald wrote this story: community workshop for Gisborne's Wainui beaches in phase 2 of the Coastal Adaptation Plan. And sure enough, they're doing exactly the same thing that has happened in Kapiti. They're doing their community outreach. They're doing their talks with the community and asking all their questions and so on, and trying to get people engaging in it. But of course, what this engagement is and we've seen this already in Kapiti. They do a lot of, I'll just share another screen here. This is what we're looking at here is the Gisborne District Council Wainui Coastal Adaptation Plan. And this is the way they do it. They have these workshops, and they've already had 2 so far, I think, and there's another couple coming. And this is their timeline. You look over here on the right, 4th of April 2025, Values and Risks Engagement. May to June 2025, Community Engagement on Options and Pathways. This is exactly the same as what happened in Kapiti. And this is exactly the same thing that raised the antenna of the Kapiti Calm ladies down there in Kapiti, because at these meetings, they ask a whole lot of questions like, what do you love living about here? Do you love the beach? And of course you write down, yes, I love the beach. And so then they come back to you with the feedback, which is everyone loves the beach, so we've got to do everything we can to protect it. And then the next thing that happens, and this is already happening here in Gisborne, if you look at this map here, Wainui Beach Hazards Map, this is exactly what happened in Kapiti as well. The council starts putting out these maps where they show the houses that are in danger of sea level rise. Okay, and this is the beach where I stayed in that Airbnb last year, and they're quite high above the beach. I'd say they're probably 5, 6, 7 meters above the beach.
Oh, at least, yeah,
Right?
at least, yeah.
And what it leads to is that these lines that they're drawing on this map here end up on these people's limb reports, and then the insurance companies start putting up the insurance rates, the premiums, and the house prices start to go down. Sooner or later, the insurance retreats, and these people are all left in trouble. This is why we wanted to do this show tonight, right?
Sean in the chat is just saying, Sean Rush is just saying, I see the hazard assessment was done by global consultants. They're using the SSP 5-8.5 and pocketing a whole ton of money.
Yeah, so in this particular case, this is in Kapiti, they use the consultants Jacobs. In Gisborne, I did a bit of deep diving today, and it turns out it's a company called WSP. That's a company of 65,000 employees headquartered in Canada, yet another multinational engineering company that writes the reports and then offers the solutions as well.
Yeah, insane. And I actually spoke to another resident who actually, funnily enough, lives in that zone, was currently living in that zone on Wairere Road that you just showed in red. But they actually own a house in Makarori Beach, which is, if you go along that, up and over the hill, Makarori Beach is the next one over. And I hadn't realised that managed retreat has already happened at Makarori Beach after Cyclone Gabriella, that certain houses past a certain number all got red stickered after Gabrielle. This couple are fighting it. They've got a KC involved. They are really trying to get a legal remedy for this, because the modelling that they're using, and the council, as she explained to me today, are using all these same excuses. You know, risk assessments using the most extreme risk involved, all based on modelling, not based on actual data, all based on if, ands, all buts and maybes. And then worse than that, most of them around them, they're the only ones that are left. Everyone else is settled. And I said to her this afternoon, what have they settled for? And ostensibly, she said roughly on average, about around 15% less than the QV or rateable value of their properties is what they settled for. Now, remember, you and I last time talked about the settlements and relocation plan for 5 Maree and 24 whenua dwellings in Tikaraka and Uawa, which Uawa is about half an hour, 40 minutes north of Makarori Beach, and about the same direction inland as Tikaraka from Makarori Beach. But those settlements are not with the council, they're with the Crown, and that number was in excess of $136 million.
Yeah, there are different rules for different segments of society, and we can see that in the reports written by the Ministry for the Environment and the Environmental Defence Society and so on. They list out all the different the different categories that you can fall into. So for instance, if you have a batch, you're not going to get a cent out of it, and you're going to have to knock it down yourself. They might contribute a little bit to the deconstruction of your batch, but you're not going to get a cent out of it. Whereas if it's your dwelling, you will. And then of course there are different ethnic groups, as we know. You know, Maori will get to move, but they will be able to keep their land, for instance. So there's all sorts of different little categories that we can all fit into, and it depends whether you're one of the favoured groups, I suppose.
I know. So if you know anybody in Gisborne that is living coastal, whether it be in town, Wainui, Makarori, even further north, Puawa, and heading north up to Whangara, make sure they get along to that screening at the Odeon, because I think for a great number of them, the council haven't really made a big song and dance about this, from what I understand. And most locals, I think, are a bit oblivious. I think they're at that place of, oh, surely this won't happen to us. Did you find that at Kapiti as well, Alistair? Was that a thing that were they?
That's exactly why the Kapiti Calm ladies got together, because here's how it worked, okay? When they first started doing the community consultations, hardly anyone was showing up. And so one of the future Kapiti Calm group members, this is before Kapiti Calm was a group, one of them took it upon themselves to print up a whole lot of flyers and put them in letterboxes all around the Kapiti region, or the Kapiti, their neighborhoods, to let people know this is what's actually happening. You've got to turn up to these meetings. And suddenly the council had 200 people on their hands, and it was all very unwieldy. And Jim Bolger was there. He's the head of CAP, which is the Coastal Advisory Panel. And he was shaking his stick and getting in people's faces. There's a really interesting altercation, actually, between the spokesperson for CALM, Tanya Lees, and she was talking, and she was saying something that he didn't like, and he got right up in her face, and she actually had to tell him to go away and say, hey, look, what are you trying to do? You're trying to shut me down or something? And that's all on YouTube. You can actually watch that. It's a really interesting thing. But I'm getting off track. What the point that I was trying to make was that once they started putting the Kapiti Calm group started putting these flyers in the letterboxes, suddenly the council had 200 people turning up to these things. So what did the council do? They limited numbers from then on to 60 people, and they said you have to register beforehand. So it was an obvious case of them trying to, make it quiet, make it so that people didn't really know what was going on. And I notice in that story with I'll just share it up here again now. The story in the Gisborne Herald from the 6th of June. It's not until the very last two paragraphs that you see what their intentions are. It says, this phase 2 community workshop will explore a range of draft adaptation approaches, including options to avoid, protect, accommodate, or retreat in response to coastal hazards. They're trying to hide the idea of managed retreat right down the bottom. And the only way that we can stop this happening is by, just everybody, we need to share this share managed out as much as we can. And we need to get people talking in really big numbers, because they don't want us talking about it.
No, they don't. They don't. And so again, if you know anyone in Gisborne, get them along for Sunday. And here in Hawke's Bay, Sean, I just saw Sean again saying here that red stickering that went on in Hawke's Bay was based on poor and very preliminary evidence that was at the high end of climate models. Yeah, I can well and truly believe that. And there's been, I know, talk of potential managed retreat in places like Hamoana and a little lesser extent Te Wanga here as well. But then Two Marae are getting Crown-funded managed retreat post Gabrielle. One of them is Tongueo, and I can't remember the other. So there's obviously, it depends on who's footing the bill, and it looks like the majority of these bills are being footed by the council, but the minute government gets involved, hello, different story. So there definitely seems to be some jiggery pokery going on here, and the most important thing is that they try and keep everyone in the dark.
I just want to answer a couple of these questions. Jackie Maru She's saying, I want to know what happens to the land when the people are managed out. Well, Jackie, we don't know yet. That's the thing. They haven't decided on that. They sort of vaguely talk about retiring the land and giving it to the conservation department, I suppose, stuff like that. But they haven't put anything concrete down on that one yet. So as far as I'm concerned, until they do, I don't trust them at all. Adam Free, what date is the Gisborne screening at the Odeon? That's this Sunday afternoon, isn't it, Maree?
Yep, this Sunday afternoon, 3:30 for the Odeon. I think 3:30. Let's have a look at my little book of words. 3:30. Yep. One of the other elements too is the attrition. So again, talking with Gisborne, when you were saying when you were staying there, how high those properties were above the beach, and they are like they're meters and meters high. Like there's steps, and bearing in mind, this is my hometown, so I've known these beaches over a period of time. And the local lass I was talking to today, and I said to her, I said, look, I remember there's a massive sperm whale graveyard. And that's just before you head over the hill to Maree. Now, all those dunes and stuff there, I said to her, I said, last time I saw, there was accretion in those areas there. The coastline is forever changing. So for them to actually have this crystal ball gazing, to even have the audacity to believe that their modelling will allow them to know what's going to happen in 20 years, let alone 50 years or 100 years, I just think is just utterly audacious and ridiculous. I just can't see how they can do that.
It's what it is, Maree, is it's absurd. And Professor Willem DeLonghi, who you see in Managed Out, giving his presentation to the crew, the Coastal Ratepayers United group in Kapiti, he points that out, that the modelling that we're seeing is pretty much right on for the next 20 or 30 years. It's after that where they just go stupid. And that's actually where, when I talk to the council people in Kapiti, they actually agree with that. They see that. Yet for some reason they have this blind spot where they just want to use these implausible models for some reason. They just will not listen to reason at all on it at all. And recently, straight after when we put this film out, in the last couple of weeks, the Kapiti Coast District Council have now put out a whole lot of new flood mapping, which uses exactly the same thing. So they say they're listening to the community, and the community is constantly telling. I've been to these meetings so many times, and they're constantly, that's the one thing they keep saying, the models are implausible, the models are implausible, the models are implausible. Dr. DeLonghi comes along, the models are implausible and they're absurd. You can't predict anything 100 years out. And they say, yeah, we're listening. And then they go and put out a flood map using exactly the same models. It shows that they're absolutely not listening.
No. And again, Sean's just saying, looking at the Wainui report, figure 2.3 shows that the projected sea level rise starting from 2005, which was when the IPCC projection started, just eyeballing it there as well as Wellington, they suggested sea level has risen by around 10 centimetres. This was when the average was 0.2 millimetres per year, so it's actually 2 centimetres.
Look at the tide gauges.
Yeah, look at the tide gauges. Now, I'm actually going to skip over the next story and staying on the topic of water, because I'm also aware of the time and the other story that you and I really also want to get to this evening. And thank you, everybody, for popping in your comments here. These are great because we are seeing them, and we are going to be taking snapshots of those as well, because some of these questions will actually help us in terms of Q&A and research and bits and pieces when we're doing the tour. So keep them coming. It's brilliant. The next story is called Hawke's Bay expecting hikes on water bill prices. So what is in the water here in Hawke's Bay? Hawke's Bay residents are facing significant water bill increases in the coming years, with price hikes planned through to 2026 and beyond. Councils covering Napier, Hastings, Flaxmere and Havelock North are all set to experience significant cost increases through to 2027. It's proposed a new government body under the Local Water Done Well reforms will take over water services, separating separating billing from general council rates. That means bills for drinking, storm and wastewater services will be mailed separately by the new entity. Sound all very Three Waters to me, but anyhow. Councils are also likely to introduce water meters to measure usage and encourage conservation. These meters are expected regardless of the final delivery model, based on successful reductions in other regions. Hastings District is planning a $656 million investment over 10 years in its water network. Meanwhile, Napier Preferred Structure is forming a regional council-controlled organisation to manage its services. Regulatory pressure from Taumata Arawai and the Commerce Commission requires new water quality and environmental compliance and full cost recovery. In a case of what is likely a foregone conclusion, water meters and separate billing are central to meeting these legal imperatives. And the consultation process for this is on now. If you are a Napier, Hastings or Havelock North resident, and I didn't grab it because I actually accidentally burnt it the other day, we got a leaflet in our letterboxes. So what have you seen diving into this story, Alistair, in terms of water? It seems to be all about the water, too much, too little. Is this trying to sort of create a distraction in one area to move something through in another?
Look, I look at this very similar to what we're talking about with the managed retreat thing, right? It's happening all over the country. And all over the country, we see with the managed retreat thing that a lot of it is actually comes down to, say, flooding in areas where they haven't cleaned the pipes or something like that. And when I did a deep dive into this one, I found pretty much exactly the same thing, right? The first thing that I found was that in Wellington, this isn't the Hawke's Bay yet, but I'll come back to the Hawke's Bay in a second. In Wellington, over 40% of the water is lost in part of the network due to aging pipes and leaks. That's a huge amount. 41%, they say, of the total amount of drinking water supplied in the metropolitan Wellington region, which is down slightly from 44% the previous year. So they're improving somehow. So then I went and looked into it further. I said, okay, well, is this happening in the Hawke's Bay as well? And yes, apparently it is happening, but it's only around 22% or 16 to 22%, depending on who you're listening to here. And what I found also is that national data suggests that New Zealand municipal water supplies typically lose about 22% of leakage all across the country. And so here they are telling us that we're going to need to pay more because we're wasting water through their leaky pipes. I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And what they're saying that one of the solutions for this is that they've got to put meters on all our water supply too, because then apparently if we're being metered on it, we won't use as much water. But it seems to me that perhaps the first thing they need to fix is the leaky pipes.
Yeah, definitely. And let's face it, I mean, Wellington's leaky pipe issue has been getting headlines for the last couple of years and is one of the issues that pretty much ended the mayor down there. And this infrastructure, and this again comes back to infrastructure, doesn't it? You know, all this focus on these models. I mean, how much have they spent on consultants for these climate models, for these adaptation models, when they could have been actually spending the money on the water infrastructure, on replacing the pipes, on the footpaths, on all of those sorts of things that, to my mind, councils should be doing. Isn't that what councils are responsible for?
Yeah, and you know, another thing that they could have stopped spending money on is perhaps they could have stopped spending money on putting poison in our water supplies as well.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, that's the water story from the Hawke's Bay at the moment.
So again, we've had some great questions here. Tomo was asking, is it the same movie that's currently on the website? Mostly. Alistair has actually made a few little tweaks and added a few little extra bits about it. If you can get to a screening, though, do come. One of the things that we found is a good number of the people that came to the screening at Tauranga had already seen the film. But they came again because there's more that they get by seeing it again, obviously, but also too, it's that getting together and discussing these issues with other people that are experiencing exactly the same issues. Because as we've seen, they're not the most open in getting people along to these consultations, or they couch it in such language that it's all very gentle. It will be okay. Come and see us, it will be fine. But don't, we're not really that phased if you come and see us. But we're just letting you know that it's on. And then, of course, you get a big fat surprise when you find something on your limb report or your insurance premiums go through the roof. And that's assuming you can get an insurance premium on your house. So, yeah, do make sure. And Dean is just saying, bring a friend. Very much, yes, good idea, Dean. Definitely bring a friend.
What we find as well, also just to add to that answer, is that at the end of the film, we have the Q&A and nobody leaves.
No.
It becomes a community meeting, doesn't it?
It does. The Q&A was incredible. In fact, the Q&A went almost as long as the film.
Yeah.
The Q&A was amazing. And I think for people, that's just as important as well, to get all these questions out. And particularly too, if you've got those there who are, if you can get counsellors along. We had some counsellors that stood up and spoke in the Q&A at the Tauranga meeting, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. It was.
If this Climate Adaptation Act goes through and this all becomes, it is already a reality. Councils are already doing this to their residents, and it's affecting their house prices and their insurance premiums. In some places, you're not even able to get insurance. So it's already affecting people. But also, on top of that, if the Climate Adaptation Act goes through, which is what a large part of Managed Out is about, that means the end of property rights in New Zealand. That means the government can come and take your property. All they need is a report from one of these huge multinational companies like Jacobs or like WSP that's doing it in Gisborne at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we're going to take a little pivot now, because this is a story that's been quite hot on a lot of independent media. And look, Alistair's very excited about this. And it sort of goes and speaks to some of our earlier episodes of RCR 360, particularly those around digital manipulation and some of the interviews that both Alistair and I have done. And it is called, what is Palantir? What is Palantir, boon or boogeyman? Palantir Technologies is a US-based software firm founded in 2003 by Peter Thiel, New Zealand citizen, no less, and others, specialising in data integration and analytics through platforms like Gotham for defence and intelligence and Foundry for businesses. Supporters highlight Palantir's impressive AI-driven growth and major government ties, including contracts with the US DoD, ICE, and agencies under the Trump administration, driving strong stock performances up to around 74 to 82% in 2025 and reaching record highs near US $138 per stock. Its tools are also credited with aiding humanitarian efforts, from the Ukraine battlefield analysis to FBI and NHS health data insights. However, critics raise real ethical concerns, which include privacy and surveillance, with Palantir accused of enabling government monitoring, controversial ICE ties, and military AI deployment to be used against US citizens. Palantir is ambitious, and it's off the back of Doge initiatives and aims to build a global platform unifying government and corporate data, transforming AI decision-making and interagency collaboration. Their motto: intelligence amplification with human oversight, leveraging big data for defence, public health and fraud reduction. Right, Alistair, this is the week that George Orwell released 1984, and that was published all the way back in 1949. His big brother here and now, and his big brother in the form of Palantir.
Yeah, look, I didn't realize that. Is that for real?
Yeah.
84 was first published this week back in 1949.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Big Brother is here. This is the next formation of Big Brother. We've had it for a while. This is what we were speaking about last year. I did that 10-part audio series for RCR, Our Digital Future, and we talked all about this. It's got its roots all the way back into, you could trace its roots all the way back into all sorts of things. One of the places that I looked at was with G. Edward Griffin, we looked into the Federal Reserve, and then, you know, what we're getting into now is where we're talking about CBDCs and digital IDs and so on. In New Zealand, our Stats New Zealand have recently started doing this as well. They've started pulling together all of our information. So our IRD number is going to be connected to our bank number. It's going to be connected to our health data and all of this stuff. And this is what Palantir is actually doing in the United States as well. And they're at pains to tell us that they don't create a big database. What they do is that they just connect it all up so that you can get a whole lot of data from each one. This is the way they describe themselves. This is in their own words. And I wanted to lead with this one because this to me is scary. This is their own words, okay? They've got these, Palantir is not a data company, they say, and they've got these three little diagrams here. The first diagram is a whole lot of dots. I'm guessing that's all us people. This random collection of dots. And then in the second one, they've got all these, the same dots, but now they're starting to connect them. That's what Palantir does. They connect all these dots and they look for patterns in the data so that they can figure out things on a grander scale. And then the third diagram is we've got all the dots in their own little prison cells. That's pretty much what we're talking about here. Of course, they really don't want us to be talking about it that way. They say that they're not building a database, that all they're doing is helping governments and so on to see the bigger picture and to be able to plan and make decisions and all of that. But here's an example of, I've got a video here of, this is their video of, it's called The Future of Warfare, according to Palantir. What we're talking about is the Minority Report. Have a look at this. Just have a look at that line right there. Battles are won before they begin.
I feel like I need to see Tom Cruise and precogs and stuff.
Now, if people don't get that that reference, when I said about Minority Report, that was the film about Tom Cruise, and he was in the police department, and they used the same sort of thing, but it's the same sort of story. But they were convicting people on pre-crime, weren't they? They were convicting people on crime before it actually happened. And that's why people are so worried about the likes of Palantir. That's what they do.
So this is the thing, I think, is there's two things. You and I have been chewing over this for a couple of days now, is that line between protection, like nation sovereignty and protection of citizens, with privacy, but all on the basis that whoever's wielding this technology actually has our best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Isn't it? As someone used to say, we're operating under a high trust model.
Well, here's the other thing too. There's another clip that we've got to share here. This is Alex Karp. He's the CEO of Palantir, and he's talking about his vision for Palantir, and it's what you're talking about there. Let's take a look.
I don't think these things, the interpretation of these stats is, well, you know, America voted is in contradiction with these stats. I actually don't see it that way. Well, the way I see it is, Americans are the most loving, God-fearing, fair, least discriminatory people on the planet. And they want to know that if you're waking up and thinking about harming American citizens, or if American citizens are taken hostage and kept in dungeons, or if you're a foreign power sending fentanyl to poison our people, something really bad is going to happen to you and your friends and your cousins and your bank account and your mistress and whoever was involved. And, you know, when Americans are spending $1 trillion on defense, what I want and what I think my peers want is, why are these people keeping our citizens hostage, torturing our people, attacking our allies, maligning us in what was once called the United Nations, basically a discriminatory institution against anything good? We need to stand up, and those people need to be scared. And that's why this conference is so important, because we have the best products in the world, and we cannot have parity. Our adversaries do not have our moral compunction. If it's even, they will take advantage of our niceness, kindness, our desire to be at home in Nebraska or New Hampshire or wherever we live in our peaceful environments. And they need to wake up scared and go to bed scared. And if you give that to the American people will go back and say, and honestly, probably shouldn't say this is why I thought the Democrats were going to lose the election, why they did, because people want to live in peace. They want to go home. They do not want to hear your woke pagan ideology. They want to know they're safe. And safe means that the other person is scared. That's how you make someone safe. And the average American person understands this. Unfortunately, many of the intellectually captured institutions funneled and intellectually owned by the Berkeley faculty do not. And that's what they want. It's sure as hell what I want. And that's what Palantir and all the people in this room, I hope, we're here to serve the American people. And my version of service is the soldiers are happier, the enemies are scared, and Americans go back to enjoying the fact that we're the only one with a real tech scene in this country, and we're going to win everything.
Do you know what that reminded me of the whole way through? I was trying to put my finger on it. It was Bart Simpson when he said in The Simpsons, and I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords. It's just what makes me think of, you know.
Well, what really frightens me about that is the way that he said that. He says their enemies need to go to bed scared. And that's what the American people, he's claiming that's why the American people voted Donald Trump in, that they want to be safe again. You know, he's weaponizing the idea of the southern border being overrun by immigrants, and they just want to be, and terrorists and so on, they want to be safe. They want their enemies to go to bed scared. My biggest problem with all of this is that it doesn't take a huge leap for that to be turned inwards on their own people. I also don't think that, to be fair, I don't think, you know, this is the trajectory of technology, right? I don't think this was always going to come. This was always going to happen. What we're doing is we're standing on the precipice right now. We're standing at the crossroads. How many more metaphors can I come up with? I mean, this is the moment in history where we have to decide which way do we want to go. We want authoritarianism because this is looking much more likely like it is. And, you know, last year I spoke twice, or in the last year I've spoken twice to Dr. Robert Epstein. And if our viewers tonight want to see more of this guy, go and look on the RCR website, do a search on the archives. What Dr. Robert Epstein does is he researches Google and Facebook and all these social media companies, and he looks especially at Google, and he looks at the way that they build profiles on every one of us, and then they manipulate us without us even knowing. Now, this is what Palantir is talking about is that, but on steroids. We're talking about using government information all the way across, all the most private things in your life, linking it to your bank accounts, your social media, everything. And you can, this guy, Alex Karp, and everybody else who's apologizing for Palantir at the moment, they can say all they like that the government's not going to use it for that. But we all know that this is how those things come to pass. The government allows it to happen in the first place.
And the really scary part with that, of course, is imagine if they had that data, those models, those linkages 5 years ago.
During the COVID era, yeah?
During the COVID era.
Yeah, well, exactly. And to be honest with you, there is evidence that they did have that. For instance, Palantir has been working with, and I'll try and find that. I'll come back to it in a minute, but the Palantir has been working with our defense force and with our security services and so on. And apparently it was involved in our COVID response. So maybe it was.
Well, I know with, we talked about this in Media Matters, is that there was the database that was being created for those tourists coming in for digital ID in terms of like tracking whether they not had international driver's licenses and such. And the tool that was used and the company that created that tool was called, I think, Matter. MATTR, and it's the same company that developed the COVID vaccination passport or certificate thing. I wouldn't know, never had one, but those people, but they sort of buried it. And I mean, the thing is these things are all linked. I mean, they've created this infrastructure. The infrastructure is not there. And I think it would be incredibly naive to believe that they're not going to create all of this digital framework and not use it, not deploy it, and not monetize it off the back of consumers. And the capitalist model of it, and actually I mentioned it to you because it dropped just before, in The Good Oil, Nathan Smith, who we've actually also interviewed here on RCR as well, and he's does some contract work for us too. He's a great writer, great journalist. It's a deep dive. Peter Thiel will give us exactly what we want, and he's been taught. This dropped today, and one of the things that he did, and I think you've got this clip too, is a Theo Von clip with JD Barnes. Why don't we play that now? Because there's a couple of really interesting linkages there, and almost a naivety that I think a great many people would share.
It's the Palantir company, right?
Yeah.
And that's about a surveillance thing. So this thing is fucked. This sounds crazy, dude. Like this sounds like we're only going to be human for like 2 more years, right? So and this is the Palantir company where they're going to build security databases that have all of our information in them, right? That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, yeah.
And it's going to have like everything. It'll like look at you and know like if you're good at tennis, or if you've ever, if you have $60 in your pocket, or if you're, it can tell if your kids are, if your kids can have a limp or whatever, if he'll be in the Christmas play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It can tell all of that. And that feels real scary, man. Like
I get it.
To a regular guy on the
understand,
street, that feels like we're going to give our society like we're going to become these, like they're going to have know everything about us. It makes you feel like you won't be a person anymore.
I hear you.
Does that make sense to you?
No, it definitely makes sense to me. I mean, let me try to explain. So to be clear, I'm not an expert on this particular deal. I actually just read about it earlier today, or maybe yesterday, but the president did an executive order, I don't know, a couple months ago. And the basic idea is you've got all this different information, but it's not accessible in one place. So like, let me give you an example where this might be useful.
Okay.
Let's say you catch an illegal immigrant, okay? And that person's using a social security number, but the Department of Homeland Security that arrests the person can't actually figure out what social security number that illegal immigrant is, what name it's attached to, okay? Or, let's say you're like investigating some terrorist and the FBI arrests the person, but there are information about like where the person lived a couple years ago that you'd like to have, so you'd maybe like to go talk to their friends or associates or whatever.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it does sound odd, but that what they're trying to do is take all the information that the Department of Homeland Security has, that the FBI has, and just make it so that it's actually not in some hyper inefficient system. It's all sort of accessible.
And I look at that, Maree, and I think I'm not sure whether Theo knows exactly what he's talking about. He's close to it. And JD, I like JD a lot, especially in the lead up to the election. But this is kind of I think that's a video of a guy deceiving us. That's what it looks like when someone's trying to deceive us. He's trying to make it sound like it's all very reasonable.
Well, I think he's potentially convinced himself that it is.
I don't know.
He's
got an energy to him which he knows. He knows there's no turning back from this one.
When we first watched this clip and talked about it a couple of days ago, I said to you then, when I saw that entire clip, all I had ringing in my ears was a governor, as he was then, Ronald Reagan, saying the 9 most dangerous words in the English language is "Hi, we're from the government and we're here to help." And that's what I felt J.D. Vance was trying to paint Palantir as. Now, are there deep inefficiencies within the bureaucracy of government that digitisation and streamlining will help and improve? Most certainly. But it's the level of integration, as you said, going from all those random dots to having the sort of threads put together and then all those dots placed into essentially a digital prison. And that's the concern. It's not the technology itself. The technology is amazing, but it's who holds the power to wield that technology against a population, against their will. That is the concern.
The argument also, Maree, is that will there ever be anyone you trust completely to hold the keys to such a system?
No, well, the short answer to that is no, because, I mean, you have democracy, but democracy will only take you so far. And also, too, what we've learnt during the COVID years is people are willing to give up their most basic freedoms for either fear or comfort.
And you heard that in the Alex Karp clip that I just played. He believes that the American people are crying out for safety from terrorists and so on.
Yeah.
Hey, there's something else that I want to bring up with this as well, which is really interesting. And I didn't tell you about this, so this is a surprise for you. It's something that I discovered just a little bit earlier on this afternoon. And it was on this fantastic channel called Jew Dissidents on YouTube. And they highlighted on this particular story this is really interesting. Have a look here. There's these 3 right-wing influencers: Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, and Jack Posobiec. I can't remember exactly how to say Posobiec. Is that
Posobiec? Yeah.
Have a look at this. I'm just going to read them out because you might not be able to see it on your screen. It's not the greatest image, but Matt Walsh says, this is him tweeting. These are all these 3 people tweeting. Ban all third world immigration, legal or illegal. There should be a moratorium on all immigration from the third world. We've reached our capacity. We cannot be the world's soup kitchen anymore. So what these people are doing, these influencers are doing, they're tweeting these in support of the likes of Palantir, because Palantir has been called in to help quell the insurrection in Los Angeles, as Donald Trump calls it, the immigrant invasion, as Donald Trump calls it. So that's what Matt Walsh had to say. And then Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec say almost exactly the same thing. It's time to ban third world immigration, says Charlie Kirk, legal or illegal. This is almost word for word. We've reached our limit and we have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix now. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third worlders. And then Jack Posobiec says exactly the same thing. It's time to ban third world immigration. What I'm getting at here is that this is the moment when we need to be able to call out the side that we've been cheering for as well, and until recently. We were fighting against this censorship industrial complex that Joe Biden and his administration brought in, and all of the overreach that they were doing to us. Have a look now at the way these right-wing influencers are doing exactly the same thing as what the left-wing influencers were doing.
This is all part of what I call woke right. Because woke, I mean, ostensibly, woke is about using authoritarian power in order to maintain control over in an oppressor and oppressed matrix, right? This is from the culture space. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle that you're from. If you're using it, stop it. If you're using authoritarian power, like, I mean, again, we talked about it before, you know, if they're using this information to help track people down in riots and things in Los Angeles, just as they used that information on January 6th in Washington, whoever's wielding it that is authoritarian. It is not right. The cancellation of people because of, you know, an opinion that you hold, whether you're from the right or the left. If you're using cancel culture, cancellation techniques, it's not right. Stop it. You just, and we're starting to see that creep in. And I know that there must be a sense of Schadenfreude there, that, you know, you're wanting to, yes, now finally we're in charge. We can, you know, you're feeling aggrieved, but there's a way to do it, and that's not the way.
Yeah, and look, Palantir didn't sign their first contract with Donald Trump. They signed their first contract with previous administrations. These same things that are allowing Palantir to be able to access all this information, to be able to provide this sort of pre-crime service, these laws have been coming in since, well, I look back to 9/11 and the Patriot Act. Other people I've spoken to, I spoke to Aaron Day recently. That interview will be coming up soon on RCR 360. You know, he traces it right back to the 1970s even. You know, so it depends who you speak to, where you can trace it back to. But this is not just a red thing or a blue thing or a Trump thing or a Biden thing. This is the people who hold the power over us thing.
This is a power thing.
Yes.
This is a power thing. And Libby is saying here in the chat, what about Winston did to banning the Israeli ministers? Yeah, I have to admit, I was stunned by that, Libby. I really was, you know, because if these are elected officials, regardless of how you feel about how they're conducting themselves in regards to a conflict, these are elected democratic officials, you know, but and I think that's why we need to keep calling these things out. And I just looking at the time, things have flown away, and we've got some other great clips, but we're going to stay over these stories, particularly this one around digital manipulation, because it fits very much within our remit here at RCR 360. Yes.
Can I add quickly before we go on that, that you know, all of these things, really, this is the hub where it's all connected. That the digital manipulation, the digital ID, our digital future. And I would put our managed out story, our managed retreat story in with that. That's about resource control, the digital ID, Palantir, all of that stuff. That's about personal control. And I think this is where we're actually getting to the pointy end.
Very, very much so. So in the sense of the screenings, as I said before, make sure manageout.co.nz is the website. All the screenings that are currently got tickets available are up. We will be adding more of those tickets there as those screenings get finalised. As I said before, Golden Bay, Westport, Hokitika, so 12th, 14th and 15th of July. Those ticketing details will be going up in the very, very, very soon. And Auckland, we're just working on that as well, but it's likely to be the 6th and the 7th. But thank you everyone for coming along today. We really do, and in the short notice, and so many of you turned up. We really do appreciate that. Thank you, of course, to Alistair. Any final thoughts before we head off, Alistair?
No, just I suppose just please, anybody who's in the Hawke's Bay and Gisborne this weekend, do come along and meet us. Say hi. We'd love to meet you, and we'd love to and share Managed Out with you, and share our thoughts and hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alistair. And a huge thank you to all of you that attended this evening, and to the wonderful Sian that has fed through all of your comments and helped respond to so many questions there for you as well. Thank you very much, Sian. Thanks, Alistair, and have a very good evening, everybody.
Thanks, Maree.